I'm Midge Shoemaker, and today is day 63 of my doing 100 days of YouTube videos and focusing on spontaneity. So, yay for day 63. I think I'm supposed to be learning something with being triggered. Um, Freaking out is probably not what I should be learning. I should be learning to just calm down, to write in my journal, and to have, and to be okay with everything and just move on with my life. But I still get easily triggered. I freak out quite easily. So today, spontaneously, I decided to check my email. I don't check my email on a regular basis. Sometimes I check it like 2 or 3 times a day, and sometimes I will go 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks without checking my email. So for whatever reason, I decided to check my email, and I got a response back from my landlord's daughter about my book that I sent her. I just sent the first 3 chapters, and I really wish that I would get more helpful feedback. Not that her feedback wasn't somewhat helpful. It was helpful, but it was very generic. That would be the best way to put it. I don't like generic feedback because it doesn't help me fix the problem. I I understand concepts. I understand the concept she was talking about. The problem is I have a hard time identifying it, especially in my own work. So I would much prefer if she highlighted or made comments in the document that I sent her, which granted I haven't opened it up because it was a Google Doc, so you can go back in and look at it. So granted I haven't actually looked at it to see if it's still in Google Docs and to see if she made any comments within the document. So I probably should go check and do that before I say too much. Um, but that is, that being said, she just left a generic message and done like a link to something to tell me like what to look for in my writing, and I'm like, okay. And then she doesn't like that I have too many characters. And I don't know about other people that read books, but I'm like, if they don't really name the character, you're just running into people. And I've even seen movies, and maybe I watch too many movies and TV shows, which is why I do that with my writing instead of reading books. But they're just people you're passing by, or people that interact with you, or people that cause things to happen, and then you never see them again. And or you mention them later on in the book or the show or whatever, but they don't have names because they're not important characters to the whole story. They just happen to be characters that help get it started. You know, like a neighbor's dog or something, or I don't know. Thinking like Mr. McGorium's Wonder Emporium, and you get a bouncy ball that, you know, you're following a bouncy ball into the story. And then there's the story, and then somewhere in the middle of the movie there's another bouncy ball situation. But so anyway, I started my book with a couple of throwaway characters. I call them throwaway characters because they're just not important characters. You could throw them away, and I guess the book would be okay without them. So it doesn't really matter. But I guess she got attached to my throwaway characters and wanted to know what was going to happen with them. And I'm like, who cares what happens with them? They're not important characters in the book. I didn't give them names. It has nothing to do with that. Everything is from the main character's point of view. It's what she's seeing, it's what she's doing, it's whatever. And then she seemed to think that, and I mean, I understand that there are times when you write books and you do stuff that you get rid of information, or you have to let go of stuff. And like, it's a really good story, like My Fall of Espinglandia, but in order to write it from only 3 characters' points of views, I have to cut out a lot of the side stories or little tidbit stories of information from some of the other characters because they're not as important. And in order to make it just 3 characters and less confusing for the reader, I have to cut out their stories. And it is true because I did write that one, and I started it with some serving boy, and I gave him a name and a whole story, and then my sister was like, what happened to this guy? I thought he was going to be like a main character, like the underdog. I got totally attached to him in your first chapter, and I was like, oh, he's not important in the story. I think I put him somewhere else just because of that, but then I was like, yeah. So that whole part had to be cut, or has to be cut, because it gets too attached to throwaway characters. I don't know if that's a nice way to call them. I don't know what else you call them, but the unimportant characters. I'm sure in somebody's head, somebody has another story they want to make up of that one, or if I ever do a side story about that character, I'm sure I could make up something, and then they would be the main character and be important. Um, but but for the book, it's not important to see things from that particular character's point of view. It's not even important to name that particular character. I just happen to. So some of the later ones, I mean, I guess I didn't need to give a name to the gardener in my Lenoia book, which is the one I sent her, Lenoia and the Teachers of Powers. I sent the first 3 chapters of that. So, but she didn't like that I had all of these characters. She's like, well, I keep waiting to see. I'm like, okay, but some of these characters that she's saying she didn't stay with. She's like, she's getting passed around. I'm like, yes, but some of them actually come back. Well, one of them shows up in another chapter, like chapter 4 or 5. I can't remember, but he does show up briefly, and then he gets dismissed again, so he's gone. And then the other one shows up later in the book a few times, I think, but not a main character, just someone that she runs into because he's there. So I don't think it's bad to have him there. The gardener, I don't think she runs into again, so probably not. And the maid that she runs into also probably not. But she mentions her, she thinks about her, but she doesn't actually run into her again, I don't think. Or if she does, it's much later in the book, and it's not important. Anyway, I have a lot of non-important characters in my books, which is probably a bad thing. I don't know. But I have them there because it's how I move the story along. It's how I keep it from being all just her dialogue and in her head, and because they're all people that she runs into. Like if you go to school or go somewhere else, you're going to run into a whole bunch of people, and not that you become friends with all of them, and not that you know all of them personally, but you become somewhat acquainted with them, or you know their name, you recognize them, whatever. So anyway, she doesn't like all of my extra characters, so I was like, I'm not really sure how to write it without all of the extra characters, but I could try. Plus, I know that this book is basically a book that I'm writing to introduce a whole lot of characters for my next book, because there's a whole lot of characters in my next book. And even though I'm only writing from 3 characters' points of view, there's like 20 characters in my next book. So I thought this would be a nice way to introduce all of those characters and what they do and why they're important, so that it's a little bit less overwhelming and confusing for the next book. And my mentor, Betsy Love, seemed to think that that was a good idea. When I did that, she loved how I introduced each one separately and all of their different powers. And now I have this person that's like a editor, works for a publishing company, and she's like, oh, you have too many characters in just the first 3 chapters. I'm like, great. And then she wants me to start the book in the middle of chapter 3, which is kind of an odd place, I think, to start the book. And then I don't know how that works if I reference other people. So I'm kind of torn between what to do with that. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? It doesn't hurt. I was originally going to write my book and go through a publishing company. And then I did a lot of writing. I met my mentor. I went to a writing groups and decided I would probably be better to self-publish my books, which I had no idea how to do that either. So this would be kind of somewhere in the middle. And my mentor, Betsy Love, she did that for a while. She did went through little publishing companies, but she didn't make a whole lot of money doing that. They don't do a whole lot of advertising and other stuff. I think they just kind of, anyway, so she wasn't feeling like she was making a whole lot doing that. And so she got the copyright back on her books, and she's rebranding them, and she's marketing them herself and doing the whole self-publishing thing herself, which is pretty cool, pretty awesome. So that's what she's doing. So I'm kind of torn betwixt the two, but I figure, if I have someone that's in the profession that's willing to help me work on my books, then maybe I can just create a separate document and just rewrite my book and be like, all right, we'll start in the middle of chapter 3 and see what happens. But I don't know about the other stuff, because I might continue to do, I can't think of what it's talking about, information dropping, putting too much information, telling instead of showing other stuff. I don't know. But I really wish she would just put it in So I probably just need to send her an email back and say, thanks for your comments. Thanks for your help. Here's what I've done. This is what I've got. If you just want the middle of chapter 3 to be chapter 1, and then you've got 4, 5, and 6, which would now be, or 4 and 5, which would now be 2 and 3, right? Be like, here's the rest of the chapters. See what you think of that. And I would appreciate maybe if you could actually like comment in the document, like where I'm info dropping or highlight or something, so that I can try to make corrections, because otherwise just telling me that I'm doing that doesn't help me. It just doesn't help me. I can't just go back through my document and read it and see, oh, I did this. And maybe if I see it multiple times, like in my document, like exactly what she's saying, then I can figure out how to stop doing that. But if she's just telling me that's what I'm doing, it's really hard for me to figure that out. So I'm like, okay, I understand the concept. That's just not something I'm good at. So this is my spontaneous thing, and it just kind of freaking me out, because I'm like, yay, somebody's helping with my book, and oh, my book is a lot worse off than I thought it was. And maybe it's not worse off than I thought it was, but I was like kind of hoping it's close to being published and it just needs to be edited. But I was also thinking I probably need to go like one more round of beta readers and probably have to rewrite it one more time before I can publish it. So I was kind of between the two and not really sure what to do. So at least this gets me motivated to do something with my story and to see where it goes. And yeah, I'm just rambling. I get excited about my writing, and then of course people give me feedback, which is good. I like feedback. I need feedback so I can learn how to do better, how to write better, how to be a better writer, and get something that's good enough that I can publish. But it is nice if I get a little bit more helpful feedback. I think the most helpful feedback I got from her was that apparently you don't italicize internal thoughts anymore. You just write them like they're regular dialogue. Or you don't write them like regular dialogue. You just write them like just regular writing. And then you only do, I guess, the quotations around people that are actually speaking. So you don't do quotations for internal thoughts. And you don't do italics for internal thought. You just write it like it's just the regular whatever internal thought. So it's like, okay, I did not know that. So I will have to go through and take out my italics and make them just regular whatever. But it is kind of weird. She also didn't seem to think that it was my italicized words were very realistic for my character. So like, okay, clearly she's not getting in my head with this book. But she thinks it's a really good book, and not offering me a book deal right now, but she's still willing to work with me on it. So I'm not really sure what that means if I make some changes to it and send it to her. But I just sent 3 chapters. She didn't even read the rest of the book. So I don't even know. I guess I just make changes and send her the changes and say, okay, this is this, and this was helpful, and this wasn't helpful, and this is what I'm doing, and can you like help me with this or whatever? I don't know. But I guess as long as she's willing to help me, she's not charging me anything at this point, which I'm grateful for. And she's not, but she's not offering me a book deal. So I don't even know if she helps me with this, if my book will actually get published with her publishing company, or if I will just end up with a different book. So that's kind of my, but see, I do things like this, and then I either get super excited or I get super freaked out because people are judging my work. And I expect them to judge my work. That's what I sent it to her for. But I just sometimes don't necessarily know how to handle or process the, I don't want to call it criticism, but the corrections, the responses, the opinions of other people. Because it is her opinion on my book. It is her opinion that I should start in the middle of chapter 3. It is not necessarily everyone's opinion that's read my book. I haven't had anybody else tell me that it was confusing that I had too many characters in my book. So that's interesting. I did have my friend, my one that was going to do my book covers, that moved away, that told me she didn't like my character after like chapter 5. She's like, I hate your character. I can't read your book anymore. I was like, okay. But, and then my park friend told me after she got to like chapter 13, she started not liking my character either. So I was like, all right, I need to fix that. But nobody said that I had too many characters or all the other stuff that I'm getting back. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just asking all the wrong people. But anyway, I am rambling. I apologize. That's all I have for my day 63 today. If you like these videos, you can hit like, subscribe, share with someone else if you think they'll like it too. And I hope you have a great day full of gratitude and maybe find something fun and spontaneous to do.